Hey guys, and welcome back. So in this video I wanna make a few adjustments to our physics asset so we can make our Mr. Potato guy look a little bit more realistic. So what I usually want to do when I play around with the physics asset is to make a backup of this. So just duplicate it first because honestly quite a lot of settings here and it's kind of hard to see figure out sometimes what does what, and suddenly you will end up with something that didn't work and you need to go back again. So this is just an easy way to get back to a starting point. So as you can see here right now he's just falling like this sack of potatoes, and a few things to note. If we hold control down and right click, we can lift him up. So as we can see, we can shake him around, and there's a few things like his arms, they seem really loose. And since this is going to be a fairly short video, I won't really go into depth about all these settings because to be honest, I don't know what they all do and how they affect it. So, but a good advice is to get acquainted with them and do that by experimenting a lot. Okay, so if we start off by selecting everything, Control A, and just try to set the angular damping. I'm just gonna do this in general. And in a more optimal scenario, you want to change these rigid body by rigid body, because not all of them needs to have the same value, but this is going to give us a pretty good starting point to experiment. Okay, so I'm going to set this to 20, and what that is going to do is to make sure that now the swinging around is gonna, the arms, for example, they are gonna come to a resting position a little bit slower, and they're not gonna oscillate back and forth too much. And the same with the head. If we want to just quickly take a look at what this does, this angular damping, if we set this to 0 and simulate. So as you can see now on the head, it's gonna keep waving back and forth, and that's because we don't have any damping on the head. So that's that value is going to make sure that this oscillation of the head is going to eventually dissipate and come to a halt. So that's one thing we can do, but it's pretty rigid or boring to look at. So another thing we can play around with is if we go into the constraints mode, we have two settings here called angular orientation drive and angular velocity drive. And I can't really say that I know how they work, but a few things that I experimented with was if I, for example, just select one joint here, the thigh, and I enable this one, then we will get access to first an orientation and then also as angular position strength. And as far as I understand, this is gonna be the top up here. The rotation or orientation is going to be the angle that it's going to try to achieve, and the position strength is going to be how strong it's going to try to achieve this rotation. So, for example, for the calf here, if we uncheck this, we can see that it already has a yaw value of minus 70, which corresponds to a pretty stretched leg position. but well, yeah, that's just what I wanted to say about the angular orientation drive. So we also have something called the angular velocity drive, and I'm not really 100% sure how these two play together, but you can enable them separately. And I think this is going to be this is a direction that it wants to go towards, and this actually says the strength, but the tooltip says it's a damping value, and as far as I can tell from experimenting with this, it's actually a damping value. So to be perfectly honest, I don't really see what this does. Well, but in any case, yeah. So these two values here, I want to experiment with this in this video, and let's see. First of all, no, let's do something else. So if we click out in the open out here, we can see also there's a little overlooked checkbox we haven't touched at all. And I did check this at one time, but it didn't really seem to matter anything. So for example, if I check this and say no gravity and play simulate, it's not like anything is happening. And for example, if I play a walk animation, something interesting is that the leg that we just touched here, the right leg, is suddenly actually animating a little bit, and we can actually move him around, and he's still gonna try and animate, and that's actually quite interesting. So I actually found this by a mistake because I was clicking around and I just noticed that it was here and tried to click it. So this is kind of new to me. Well, the thing about this is if I change this to slurp and then play, nothing is really happening on the calf here, and I think it's not like I'm 100% sure, but I think this is tied into the way that the NVIDIA PhysX is working, because this is slurp is short for sphere linear something interp. So it's the angular drive mode. So this is going to be the shortest rotation possible, and twist and swing is going to be more like kind of how a joint would normally act. Can't really explain this better. But the thing is, I guess the joint update joint from animation only works, or maybe it's actually the angular velocity drive that only works if you have twist and swing enabled. Actually, one thing we could try is to set everything to free. Okay, so that works as well. So I can't remember which setting it was. Okay, so I think it's correct. So that's something to notice. Okay, so let's set this back to twist and swing, and I did already experiment a little bit with this, so but just wanted to show how I kind of got to this. So this is actually kind of interesting to me because I wanted originally when I started out this series, to achieve a kind of a blend between ragdoll and animation. And this with this approach, I can kind of get something very close to something usable. So let's continue and set up some actual values. So if I Control A and select everything again, I'm just gonna select, check all of them, and for the angular position strength, I'm gonna set this to 1000, so it's gonna be a pretty high value. And for the damping down here, I'm gonna set it fairly high, but still kind of low. So I'm gonna set this to 50. About the max angular force, this is also a setting I'm not really 100% sure on, but I think I'm gonna set this to 0. So I guess this is gonna be there's not gonna be any limitation on the maximum angular force. So I'm gonna force all of these to twist and swing, and let's see how this looks. So if I simulate and play, now we have a kind of a blend, and this was actually what I wanted to have originally. So I can actually drag him around, and he's gonna still try to walk. Oops, come back. Okay. Anyway, so this, if we turn on gravity again, we can see now that he's falling quite a bit more like a real person would do, I guess. One thing I noticed is that the feet, they kind of collapse on themselves. So I think I will select both of the feet here and try and set them to try and set this angle position really high, so 50,000. Okay, so that didn't really work out well. Maybe just disable. Hang on a second. What happens if I set this no gravity? Try to pull his foot. Well, the foot is still kind of collapsing. Which kind of sucks. Okay, so I'm really looking for a way to make sure that this foot stays pretty locked. So I could try and just change this to locked. So let's turn on gravity again. So that's gonna create kind of a springy effect, and that's not really what I'm after. So I think that is not the way forward. Okay, so for now I'm just gonna go with this very high value, and with these settings, let's see how this looks when we in game. So something interesting is going on here, and if I play this in slow motion and I go Ragdoll, you can see he's making kind of a very subtle twist. And I guess that is due to the some of the settings on the pelvis. So I think I'm gonna, for the pelvis, disable orientation drive and velocity drive and see what that looks like. That's gonna create this more okay, so I'm pretty more satisfied with this. Kind of wish that he would fall down though. Okay. Okay, so one thing that we might be missing, I'm not really sure. Yeah, okay, so once I press Ragdoll, he's kind of just going full Ragdoll immediately. And the thing is, with this setting, you need to go to the third person character, to the mesh, and all the way down here, we have that same setting called update joints from animation, and if we tick that one, he's still just gonna go full Ragdoll. Okay, so one change more. I just remember that we when we go Ragdoll, we set the movement mode to none. So if I just temporarily disconnect this one, and as you can see now, maybe he's kind of keeping the falling or jumping idle pose while just a little while. So, but right now we need to fix a lot of other things, because now we can actually lie down and run and jump and stuff. So that's something we need to fix. But I'm going to do that in the next video. I hope this provided a little insight to the settings that I used for this these physics asset settings. It's definitely a thing to experiment a lot with, to see if you can achieve a very good behavior. So yeah, thank you for watching, and see you in the next. Bye bye.